What do you think the Niners offseason priorities should be in terms of position? Like they have this 11th pick. Is it D end? Is it D tackle? Is it offensive line in general? Like how would you rank the priorities in a perfect world?
So am I going first? I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go.
Yeah, let's go. Let's discuss it. Let's see if we can come to a consensus.
Well, all right. Well, the first, I think it's got to be offensive line, offensive tackle. Like to me, I think they have to address the offensive line because there's the thing about football, and I think you do streams with people that have coached and people that have played, and you have connections, and I would ask your, the people have played, people have coached, like how many times have you won, or how many times have you won a game where you said, you know what, our offensive line and our defensive line sucked, but our skill positions, they just won the day for us.
Yeah. Yeah, we won in spite of getting trounced in the trenches.
Right.
And how often does that happen?
Yeah, I'm going to venture to say if you polled all those people, they're going to say never or very, very, very infrequently.
And maybe because of a bunch of turnovers or something.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it all starts there. It's got to start there, right? Like, and I'm a big fan of the Joe Burrow meme, like when with the Jamar the Chase draft. And you can't throw to somebody if Joe Burrow's on the ground,
right? Even if he's wide open,
right?
Yeah.
Like running backs can't create holes that aren't there, so you got to start there. And I see, Trent Williams, he's awesome, and I think when he plays, I think it's safe to say he's gonna be baseline a top 5 tackle in the game, right, when he plays, and you don't know how long he's going to play for, right? But he might tell you I'm going to play for another 3 years, but his body might say differently. And you or
he might say I'm done. I had a personal tragedy. I'm 37. I didn't see this coming. I'm sorry. I mean, we haven't really heard a word from him in a while.
Or he just changed his mind, or he's like, nothing to do with personal tragedy. He's just like, hey, I'm just done with football. I'm just. But you have to account for that as a team. Like, so how long are you going to let this go until something happens, or are you going to start addressing it ahead of time? And I've seen you talk about this before, but like, how many times are you going to be in a position to draft this early? Because these offensive tackles, and I know this isn't a great year for offensive tackles, but how many times are you going to be in a position to draft an offensive tackle with elite talent? Like, I don't know.
I mean, if everything goes according to plan with the Niners, they get healthy, they bounce back, easy schedule. They're in the playoffs. They're picking in the 20s or the late 20s.
Yeah, I think if they got to scout these guys hard, and if there's a guy they like, and I think they got to go get him or just draft him at 11. Be it Banks or Campbell or whoever. If I think that. If they think Campbell's the guy and they think he's going to go earlier, I think they should sniff around and see if they can move up to go get him. Because I think it's that important. Like, I wouldn't give away a whole draft for it, but I think you got to look into it,
especially considering the Niners really haven't drafted an offensive tackle since Jalen Moore 4 years ago, and he's a free agent. So at minimum, they have to replace him. And Trent Williams missed 7 games last season. You have to be prepared to play a half a season or more without him. And Colton McKivitz is still Colton McKivitz, for the record.
Yeah. 49ers fans have been spoiled, right? Because the 49ers lucked into that Trent Williams situation. Like, Joe Staley retired, and the 49ers were caught with their pants down. And then it's not often where you have an organization as disorganized as Washington, where they just ignored a brain tumor and the player's upset, and he's like, I need to get out of here. Right. Like, if you guys all can go look at offensive tackles, don't hit the market.
No.
Good ones don't.
No.
And they're generally not on trade blocks.
No.
I mean,
especially ones that are going to be first ballot Hall of Famers.
Yeah, and usually these guys actually don't really request trades. Like, look at what's his name, the guy with Joe Thomas. He just like sat there and on a crappy Browns team for his entire career. The guy was awesome, right? never asked to leave, or the guy's
Hall
gonna
of
be
Famer.
Hall of Famer. He's Hall of Famer.
Yep.
I don't know how many meaningful games he played in his entire career, but he should have. But like these guys just don't leave, And
here's my thing though, or the Niners thing. They drafted McGlinchey with the 9th pick, and I think that was a traumatic experience for them because he wasn't worth it. I mean, they didn't give him a second contract, and he was just okay.
That's their
and they
fault,
passed on some players who were really good. And since then, you've heard Chris Forster and Kyle Shanahan say stuff like, we just need a starter. You can find these guys later in the draft. We like Colton McKivitz and Jake Brendel. Like I almost feel that they've changed their philosophy and they're not gonna really invest unless it's Trent Williams. They're not really gonna invest in offensive linemen that high anymore. Like they just found Dominic Pooney in round 3. I wouldn't be surprised if they waited until round 3 again.
He's a guard though. Like if you look at
true.
offensive tackles, you've always been able to find good guards like late, like it's offensive tackles where those guys, if you look around the league, good offensive tackles are generally first round picks, and they're generally top 15
top
guys.
10,
yeah.
15,
yeah.
I mean, left tackles can be top 5. If you're at 11, now you're thinking maybe right tackle.
Yeah.
Which is fine if they could get a right tackle. Anthony Davis was the 11th pick once upon a time.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I hear, you've said this before. People on your stream have said it before. Is like the thing is, offensive line takes so long to develop. Well, like, if you're gonna keep kicking this bucket down the road, like you're gonna be continue to have this problem, and just only gonna continue to steamroll. So you gotta address it now, like, and they're just, when Trent steps away, they're not gonna, unless they strike gold again, and some guy just randomly wants to be traded to the 49ers, like they're gonna be caught with their pants down, and they're not gonna have, they'll be playing with, I don't know who's gonna play left tackle. Maybe you.
You know what their record is without Trent Williams since they traded for him?
Probably bad.
4-12.
4-12. Because he's the centerpiece for their offensive line, right? Like, yeah.
He's what's special on the offensive line. Everyone else is like there. Although Pooney might become pretty good.
Yeah, I think Pooney, obviously, he seems like he's it. See, I don't necessarily think Colt. I think Colt McKivitz is all right, but like you should still be looking to get, even if Trent Williams was 30 or 29, I still think you should be looking to upgrade.
I think Colt McKivitz is a great replacement for Jalen Moore as a swing tackle. Phenomenal. I think they should go get a new starting right tackle and move Colton McKivitz to the bench. I think he would play the bench so well. I couldn't imagine anyone who would be better suited for the bench than Colton McKivitz. I like that setup. And then they can find a left guard in round 3.
If they did like what Seattle did a couple years ago, and they drafted an offensive tackle in the first round and an offensive tackle in the second round, I wouldn't be mad at that. Like,
oh, when they went Cross and Lucas?
Yeah.
You gotta, I mean, and just because you take an offensive tackle at 11 doesn't mean you're gonna hit, but you gotta, again, what's the alternative? Waiting till next year when you pick 27th?
Right.
Because that's what happened last year. It was a really good class of offensive tackles, like 5 or 6 of them went in the top 20.
And then they all go.
Yeah, and we asked John Lynch, like, why didn't you take one? He was like, well, we'd love to, but look where we were picking. So, okay, now you're at 11.
Yeah.
If you got to move up for Campbell, fine. I like Kelvin Banks. A lot of people are just like, absolutely anyone but Kelvin Banks. I don't know. I mean, we'll see what his arm length is at the combine, but he looks kind of like built like Rashawn Slater, who's hella good.
I also think with Banks, I think he fits their profile. I think there's something to Kyle wanting a specific, if he's going to draft an offensive lineman high, he wants a specific, like he wants him to be able to execute his scheme, right? Mm-hmm. And I think Kelvin Banks has the specifically agility and the balance for his size to be able to execute the blocks on a high level that Kyle wants. So I think that
he can do it right tackle, he can do it a guard, he can do it wherever, but he's going to be an incredible run blocker in this scheme in the NFL, I think.
Yeah, and I don't think, even with the short arms, like I still think he can be a plus pass blocker. He's going to have issues with certain edge rushers, but like, Trent Williams gets beat sometimes, and so do other tackles in the league. It's just he's going to be like a plus. He'll be a plus pass blocker, but he'll be an elite run blocker.
Yeah, and is it like
he won't have those McGlinchey moments where he's just gonna get steamrolled.
Do you really need a 6'7", 6'8" offensive tackle who's high cut and lean and going to get thrown around and can't anchor? That's what the Niners always look for in a right tackle. I don't understand why they want that skill set. How about someone who's like can't anchor and is really athletic and a little shorter?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We want the guy who gets thrown around because he's 6'9" and his center of gravity is above the edge rusher's nose. Like, why?
Yeah.
I don't get it. I'm with it. I mean, I will go offensive tackle too. They're going to go D-line though. No, they're going to go tight end.
Yeah. See, if you had the offensive line settled, if you had this issue resolved, I think that taking tight end is an excellent, because I always kind of advocated going after another high-end tight end versus a receiver, because I think it helps you more in the matchup, in the matchup with the matchups. And I think tight ends are way harder to find. Good tight ends are way harder to find and they're cheaper.
So that's a guy you want to give a second contract to, whereas you could get a wide receiver, he could be great, and you're like, do we really want to give him $40 million a year? Do we really want to do that?
Yeah, I would rather pay, the way the Niners now is, right? You have Debo on a big contract and you have Ayuk on a big contract. I would, in theory, I would prefer to, for instance, have Kelsey and Kittle together on big contracts, or just get whoever at wide receiver.
Yeah, theoretically, you could have Kelsey and Kittle together on your team for about the price of one Brandon Ayuk, for less than the price of one Jamar Chase.
Right.
Yeah. And really, theoretically, you could have Kittle and Warren on your team for, less than $20 million a year, something like that. I don't know. That'd be kind of interesting.
Yeah. I like the idea. But I feel like you got to address the first.
What about
part.
Simmons, that offensive tackle from Ohio State who tore his patellar tendon? Would you try that?
I don't like I don't like the injury thing,
No.
Especially with the Niners. They've had bad luck with that stuff.
Yeah. So we don't necessarily have the answer on which offensive tackle to get, but the Niners. You know what I would do if I were Kyle Shanahan this year?
Yeah.
Go to the combine.
Do you think they'll draft a defensive tackle, and then Banks or whoever will be there, Camp will be there, they'll be like a Hall of Famer, and then well, we didn't even scout him.
I mean, this is essentially what happened with Javon Kinlaw, Tristan Wirfs. Could have had Tristan Wirfs, who looks like a generational offensive tackle, and the Niners are like, no, sorry, not for us. We want this defensive tackle. He's going to be more of an impact player. Okay.
But I remember that. I remember those times, and I remember being against Tristan because I didn't think it was a need at the time. And I know you were very very against Mike McGlinchey, and you wanted to replace him. But I think they're in a different.
That's place. One of my takes that held up, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, they're in a different place right now. I think they need to address, because they have issues. Their right tackle is good. He's okay, right? Or okay, but their left tackle.
Thanks. Let's be accurate there. Okay.
Their left tackle is old. He's getting up there. So,
and Jalen Moore is leaving, and he did a solid job last year in relief, but they lost those games, and now he's gone, or soon to be.
Yeah. So,
okay, I got another guy for you. Unless you got more for offseason priorities. Do you want to do secondary priorities, or
no? What's your next priority? What do you got? I mean, you said they're going to go.
To me, it's
after
it's the run defense in general. I think it's almost more important than the pass rush, because, I mean, if you can't stop the run, I don't think you have a chance against the Eagles, or the Commanders, or the Lions. And the Niners can't really stop the run. I mean, from D tackle to linebacker to safety, even setting the edge, I think it's such an issue. So if they could, anyone in the middle of their defense.
Yeah, they need more. And I know a lot of people they need more size there.
They need bigger D tackles for the wide nine.
If this was something they tried to address with Javon Kinlaw, it just didn't. It just didn't work out. But they need bigger defensive tackles.
6'5", 325.
Yeah. Ideally, I think, to me, what they need is, in a perfect world, they would have one of their defensive tackles should be should be one of the top defensive tackles in the game, and can play the run, can play the pass. And then the other one, I think you can get away with subbing based on down distance and all of that. Like, when it's first down, you can put in a run stopper or whatever. When it gets in the pass down, you put in a pass rusher.
Bring in Yetur Gross-Matos.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, do you think Drake Jackson is going to factor into this team this year?
No.
No.
Next question.
Damn, dude. Next question. Do you agree with me at the run defense? I don't know.
Drake Jackson has a same chance as Drake having an effect on this team.
Just drafting a player named Drake was a mistake right there.
Yeah. Did you see the footage of like some guy who flew a drone up to his penthouse in Australia? And he was like throwing. The
throw was great. So good.